Local news, national news, even feel-good news. Delivering the topics that are relevant to you.
That's why I listen to Joe. He covers it all.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
Well, I'm so excited to be back on the radio with you guys here on a Monday, and I want to share an anecdote with you. And Laurel and Paul Cross, I want your feedback on this. So something happened on Saturday, and I had these flashbacks to my childhood after this happened on Saturday. And I want to get your take on how you would have handled something similar to what I'm about to describe to you. So Saturday afternoon, it was quite lovely. I waited till kind of late afternoon. It was probably, I don't know, maybe 5 o'clock or so. I didn't check the time, but I went out for a walk from my home. And it took a pretty long walk. And for those that might be new to the show or just joining us, or if you have short-term memory issues, I had very minor lung surgery a couple weeks ago, and I'm still recovering from that. And as such, I get winded easily. So I'm really pushing the limits of my lungs by getting out and taking very long walks. And that's what I was doing on Saturday. And I was walking around. There's a Publix out in Hamlin, which is in far west Orange County in Winter Garden. And I was walking out there by the Publix. And I walked all the way to it's not a Smoothie King. What's the other smoothie place? Not Smoothie King, but
Planet Smoothie?
Planet Smoothie?
Yeah, maybe it was Smoothie King, actually. Maybe
Tropical
it was
smoothie?
Oh, maybe it was Tropical. I don't know. There's a smoothie place over there. That's all I know. And every single time I buy a smoothie, I think to myself, man, I love smoothies. And then I'll have like 2 or 3 sips, and I'm like, no. I hate smoothies. Smoothies are terrible. I really don't like smoothies, and I don't know why. I keep thinking I'm going to like a smoothie. Smoothies are awful. Anyhow, that's a separate point. So as I'm walking along, and again, I was really pushing it, and for a while, I thought to myself, oh gosh, I have walked too far away from my home because I still have to get back. You know, man, I'm like, I think I have pushed my lungs beyond their limit. I've still got to get back. And as I was walking back, I was walking very slowly. And there's a little pizza place there called the Pizza Press. Of that, I am certain the name of the place. It's called the Pizza Press. And in front of the Pizza Press, there was this guy sitting there on a bench. And I swear it looked like he was praying to his car. He was kind of leaning over.
We've all done that.
He had his hands clasped together. His head was down. He looked like he was in prayer, and it looked like he was praying over his car. Now, the car was a white convertible Corvette, not the newest body style, but one of the newer body styles. So I don't know. I don't know my Corvettes very well, but I do know it was a Corvette. And that was the last I thought of it. So I go walking on, and the next thing I know, I'm hearing the loud, and I realize it's that Corvette. And he had picked up somebody at the Pizza Press because I saw it was convertible, and I saw in the passenger seat the teenager was wearing a Pizza Press T-shirt. So clearly he was picking up someone from work. Well, as I'm walking back, there's an Urban Air right there, which is a trampoline park. And in the early evening on a Saturday, late afternoon on a Saturday, that place is pretty full. It really fills up. I mean, plus it's air conditioned and it's indoors, and that's a popular place to be when it's so stinking hot outside, as it was on Saturday. And this white Corvette that I had since forgotten about is suddenly doing burnouts in the parking lot. It is doing, 50, 60 miles an hour through the Publix parking lot, through the Urban Air parking lot. I was really, really irritated at this driver. And the driver, I swear, was not a teenager. He had to have been in his 20s, maybe even his 30s. I mean, I would expect that kind of behavior out of a teenager. Teenagers don't have fully formed brains, but 20-somethings and 30-somethings certainly should. And as this guy, there are teenagers and children in the parking lot all over the place at Urban Air. There was a bunch of teenagers hanging out, and then there was a bunch of younger children with skateboards there in the parking lot. And this guy is clearly cruising and showing off for the kids that are in the parking lot because he keeps driving right by them, doing burnouts and speeding really, really fast. And so he speeds right in front of Urban Air. If anybody was out there on Saturday afternoon, you may have seen this. And this guy blows past the entrance of Urban Air. And I suddenly have this flashback to when I was like 10 or 11 years old. You know, memory experts tell you that you remember the extraordinary, you forget the mundane. I have no doubt that throughout the totality of my life, I have gone with my father to the hardware store hundreds of times. I don't remember all of them, but I remember this one time. I was living in a suburb of Seattle, Washington at the time, and I was 10 or 11 years old, and we were going to a hardware store, and some teenager was doing burnouts in the parking lot. This had to have been like 1976, maybe 1975. I mean, not much has changed since 1975, has it?
No.
Right?
No.
And so some kid is doing burnouts with his hot rod in a parking lot. And my father, out of absolutely nowhere, and I'd never heard my father do this before, my father shouts at this driver to slow the F down. And I was just gobsmacked. I was like, oh my gosh, my dad just did that. And I was embarrassed as a kid. I mean, I can't explain why I was embarrassed. It was just, I was embarrassed. And I remembered that moment as this Corvette was speeding by in front of Urban Air. So we come back to today. That was our flashback to 1976 is over. Now we're back to today. And I think, gosh, am I about to be my dad? Am I about to do what my dad did that embarrassed the heck out of me when I was a kid? Am I really going to shout at this guy driving this Corvette? And I was still contemplating it as I was walking in front of the Urban Air. So it wasn't on the street. It was in the parking lot. But there is a street, if you will, right in front of the Urban Air. Excuse me. And I decided at the very least, I was walking on the sidewalk. I'm going to walk in the street right there in front of Urban Air. I'm going to walk right down the middle of the street. So at the very least, the Corvette is going to have to slow down because I am standing or walking in the middle of the pathway. So as I approach the door, the direction I'm walking in is towards the front door of Urban Air. And as I'm walking towards Urban Air, I see an Orange County Sheriff's deputy walk out outside. And he walks out. I see him on my right, and I glance to my left, and I see an unmarked patrol unit, sheriff's deputy car. And the reason why I knew it was an unmarked deputy's car is because he had the lights on. It is a deterrent, and they hire off-duty deputies at Urban Air as deterrent so that they don't have violence and gang fights and all that other stuff at Urban Air. And the deputy just came walking out of Urban Air, and I said, Deputy, excuse me, I said, I know you're not on duty right now, but that guy in this convertible Corvette is going to kill someone if someone doesn't stop him. And I was, I mean, I'd never been more certain about something in my life, that this guy was going to kill someone, if not himself. I mean, his passenger even wasn't, not only was he not wearing a seatbelt, he was standing up in the convertible while this guy was doing burnouts and stuff. I don't know how he didn't go flying out of the car. I mean, it was it's one of those things where you want to look, but you don't want to look because I don't want to see this guy go flying out of the car. And so I said to the deputy, look, I know you're off duty, but that guy's going to kill someone. And the deputy hopped in his unmarked vehicle and took off after him. And that's the end of the story. I don't have any idea if the deputy caught him or not. No idea. And if he did catch him, I don't know if he was able to write him a ticket or anything. But the deputy said to me, he said, the reason why I just walked out of Urban Air was because I saw something out of the corner of my eye fly past me here at the front door. And I said, that was the white convertible Corvette that just blew past you. So he was aware that something was happening, and I was there to tell him what had just happened, and he took off after it. But so my question is this. What do you do in a scenario like that if you were in my shoes? would you do what my dad did and yell at a guy? I feel like times have changed since the 1970s were a little bit less violent, than they are now, or less. What is the word I'm looking for? Less unknown. I mean, these days you don't know if someone's got a gun that they're going to whip out and say, "Shut up, old man," and just start shooting at me. You know what I'm saying? I mean, what do you do in a situation like that?
I think that I have gone from, in my younger days, thinking, what an a-hole, and not doing anything about it, to doing what your father did and then catching myself, which is, slow down. Oh.
Yeah, right?
Because you don't know what that person has in their car, right, and they're going to go by and say, you are the a-hole, bang, bang. So I think you did the right thing, at least by having that out-of-duty or off-duty cop there. But I think I probably now I've turned into that get off my lawn guy. I just have. And I probably would call the cops because I don't tolerate that stuff now, not at my age.
There is a story circulating right now about these two black teenagers in Las Vegas that stole a car and they ran over a bicyclist and they video recorded the whole thing. They actually did. The article says they rear-ended one car and then ran over a bicyclist. They didn't just rear-end a car. They did a pit maneuver on a car, which I was slightly impressed they were able to do a pit maneuver as a couple of teenagers. But the driver was 17 because they caught him and they know who he is. But they ran over a bicyclist who happened to be, he was a white guy, and he happened to have been a former chief of police. And they ran him over and killed him. They killed the guy because they were driving a stolen car. If you're driving a stolen car, you've got nothing to lose by damaging your car. And, I don't know that Corvette wasn't stolen. And if that Corvette wasn't stolen, or if it was stolen, rather, the guy wouldn't think twice about running me over with it because it's not damage to his own car.
You're right. You're absolutely correct on that. And the street cred, too. Hey, I stole a car, I wrecked it, and, got away with it. But these guys didn't get away with anything.
844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. What do you do in a situation like that? How do you handle something like that? I mean, would you yell at the driver? Would you stand in the way? Would you mind your own damn business? There were plenty of parents in the parking lot that were minding their own business. I will say that there was another parent, a black man about my age. I'm very bad at guessing age. He could have easily been half my age. I don't even know what I'm talking about. I cannot determine people's age. But there was a black gentleman that was there, and he and I were both walking towards the deputy at the same time. And he was, I'm certain, because he kind of joined me in saying, yes, white Corvette, definitely bad. So I think two of us were ready to tell the deputy about what just happened. And that's good. I thought that was good. And thankfully there was a deputy there. Otherwise, that would have been much more difficult to handle. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. Use the open mic in the WDBO app. What would you have done in a situation like that? What is the proper way to handle it in this day and age? Is it the get off my lawn scenario, or is it mind your own damn business, or something somewhere in between? Hit me up now. Coming up next here on the Joe Kelley Show, we're going to have all the stories that you missed while you're at the office today. That'll be coming up next.
FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk.
I used to have a neighbor that would fly down my road after warning him twice. I stepped out in the middle of the road, made him stop, and I think he now understands not to fly down the road due to the kids playing.
Yeah, and that was my intention. It was just stand in the middle of the road, just to let him know, hey, you can't do this. And there are children present. I mean, if this was an empty parking lot, then knock yourself out. But this was full of cars. Not to mention there are light posts all over the place that he could have easily slammed into. And there were little kiddos. Man, there's just too many people there. It was too dangerous. You're listening to the Joe Kelley Show. My name is Joe Kelley here on WDBO. And, of course, this is the time of the show in which we bring you all the headlines that you likely missed if you're working a 9 to 5 today. These are the stories that happened that broke today between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. We'll start with the Washington Post. This came out 9 hours ago. A U.S. Congresswoman, her name is Jennifer Wexton. I know you've never heard of her. She's a Democrat from Virginia. She announced today she will not seek re-election after she got a new diagnosis that was more serious than Parkinson's disease. She had earlier been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, but she evidently has a very, very advanced and very progressive form of a neurological disease that regrettably is going to kill her. In probably not too distant future. I praise her for not trying to stick it out in the Congress like some other members of Congress have, and I will pray for her that she is. It's an incurable disease. I will pray for either a miracle or that she's able to pass without any great deal of pain or discomfort. If you're the praying type, her name is Jennifer Wexton. And I'm sure she could use your prayers tonight. 9 hours ago, Fox News reported that Hunter Biden is suing the IRS, alleging that agents tried to target and embarrass him. 8 hours ago, NBC News had the report that 5 Americans jailed in Iran have been freed as part of a deal that gives Tehran access to $6 billion in frozen funds that the United States and the Biden administration would have you believe will only be used for humanitarian efforts in Iran. Do you believe that? 7 hours ago, ABC reported that a person of interest has been detained in the fatal shooting of a Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy. That person of interest was later arrested. He is now deemed to be the official suspect. This is a very interesting story. 3 hours ago, New York Times had the report that Russell Brand, I don't know if you know who Russell Brand is. He is a British comic slash comedic actor slash comedic writer. Russell Brand, was he not married to Katy Perry at one point, Laurel? Wasn't Russell Brand and Katy Perry, weren't they married?
They definitely were together. Yes, I believe they were married.
Yeah. So Russell Brand has postponed the final dates of his UK comedy tour after news organizations published sexual assault allegations against him. It intrigues me this many years after the Me Too movement that allegations like this are still coming forward. There are 4 women who are accusing Russell Brand of rape. And just like with the videos of Danny Masterson and Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis, after Danny Masterson was convicted of rape and sentenced to 30 years to life, there are now videos coming forward, videos that are being found of Russell Brand making comments that are highly questionable and well beyond, just comedy content. He clearly is talking about raping girls in some of his material. Less than an hour ago, the Washington Post reported that Michigan State plans to fire their football coach, Mel Tucker, for cause after he's accused of sexual harassment. For cause means he will not be getting the rest of his paycheck. And 31 minutes ago, Fox Business reported that the U.S. national debt hits a dangerous new milestone for the first time in history. Are you ready? Our national debt has hit $33 trillion. I can't even comprehend. I know you can't comprehend. I can't comprehend 33 million. Honestly, I don't think I could comprehend $33,000. But $33 trillion is insane. Look for the Joe Kelley Show podcast wherever you get your podcasts. If you ever miss a minute, you miss maybe the last 40 minutes and you want to catch up, just look for it anywhere that you get your podcast. It's the Joe Kelley Show podcast. We'll continue straight ahead.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. Connected to our community. Talk local issues and events with Joe Kelley. Use the open mic in the WDBO app and let Joe know what interests you. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
So you heard by now that one of the Marine Corps' fighter jets is missing. It's an F-35 stealth fighter jet. This is the newest fighter jet in the U.S. arsenal. Very advanced fighter jet, this is, F-35 stealth, and it is missing. And now the Marine Corps, the U.S. officials are asking for the public's help in finding this. They've ordered now, the U.S. officials have ordered a 2-day stand down for all military aviation inside as well as outside the United States after this F-35 jet went missing in South Carolina. No units are allowed to fly unless there is a discussion for 2 days about safety measures and procedures. The pilot ejects from the F-35. There are some reports that the jet was in autopilot when he ejected. I have not seen any confirmation of that. But they don't know where the jet is. It may be at the bottom of a lake or bottom of the ocean somewhere, but they're unclear. They've also they've asked for the public's help, but they've not offered a reward for the jet. It does seem quite ironic, if you will, that a stealth jet is now unfindable. It's an $80 million jet, and the Marine Corps has lost the stealth fighter.
There's the headline. The invisible man cannot be seen.
Right. We should put the Wonder Woman on it. I mean, she has an invisible jet, too. So we can put Wonder Woman on that. What a bizarre, absolutely bizarre, such a bizarre story. It is so
Somebody
crazy.
in our chat room suggested an Apple AirTag. I mean, that will help you find your keys, your wallet, anything. Why wouldn't it be able to
the jet,
be somewhere on the jet?
Right. The jet has for Pete's sake, my drones have transponders. Okay, if I lose my drone, I can find my drone even if it hits the water. These jets have transponders, but for some reason they haven't yet determined the transponder was not working on the fighter jet. Well, that seems what's the word? Suspicious. Yes. That's very, as the kids would say, that's very sus. And if anybody has any theories on the missing F-35 fighter jet, by all means, we're all ears. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. Also, if you're just joining us, we're talking about an incident that I witnessed on Saturday afternoon. I was out for a walk, and long story short, short story long, a couple of ding-dongs in a convertible Corvette were doing burnouts in the Publix parking lot and the Urban Air parking lot in Hamlin, way out in West Orange County, and there were kids everywhere. It was so busy that day, and I didn't know what to do. I was reminded of an incident when I was 10 that my father yelled. It was just the exact same incident, honestly. It was a parking lot of a hardware store, and some kids were doing a burnout in their car, and my dad shocked the heck out of me. I've never heard my dad cuss a day in his life, but my dad shouted, "Slow the F down!" And the teenagers flipped off my father that were driving the car, and I was just mortified as a 10-year-old. You know, 10-year-olds are mortified by anything. But I was mortified by that, and I was thinking, man, should I be yelling at the guys in the Corvette, or do they have a gun? Are they going to shoot me? I mean, what's going to happen?
Hey, Joe, I feel today, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. In some situations, you hear about these people getting their heads blown off because of people like those convertible drivers. So, yep. These times have changed, definitely. Well, my dad was kind of like your dad, too.
That was just that just so stands out in my mind as a kid.
So I had a neighbor once who built this little pea shooter with no exhaust and was flying up and down the street way too fast. I happened to be working in my car. I happened to have a big, long metal breaker bar in my hand. So I stood up and just walked a little bit towards the edge of the driveway. I was going to maybe flag the guy down and just ask if he could be careful because there's kids in the neighborhood. Apparently he saw the tool in my hand, went home, and never ran the car again. Told my neighbor down the street that he was afraid of me. I got a good chuckle out of that.
And honestly, I'm in no position to be able to do anything. I'm 160 pounds, 6'2". I am really just a skeleton with tightly stretched skin over it, and that's about all I am. And then, of course, I'm 2 weeks from having minor lung surgery. I mean, I can barely breathe, much less shout at somebody,
Hey, Joe, I know you're talking about someone can just pull out a gun and start shooting nowadays, but you can yell at them all you want. Doesn't mean that they're even going to stop. They might just think that you're yelling at them to keep going. So what you did, and just walk in the middle of the street to at least possibly get him to slow down, but then also find the officer that was off duty and point him out and tell him that fool's driving like an idiot.
That was so nice. I was so happy to look up and see a sheriff's deputy in uniform, walking out of the urban air.
You were so fortunate that there was someone there. I would have probably taken a couple photos and called the cops.
Honestly, taking pictures is almost always my first reaction, right? Because I am in the world of content creation, so I like to take pictures and videos of things. In fact, during that same walk, just a few moments before that, I found a stone in the plant bed that somebody painted "Be Kind" on it. And I thought, oh, that's cute. And I stopped and took a picture of the stone, but it never crossed my mind to take a picture of the Corvette doing burnouts.
Hey, Joe, here is Jose.
Jose!
I tell you, I wouldn't do the same thing as your father. Jail that guy. And, because it's my first instinct. Also, as Paul says, call the police. Probably find another people around that to say, hey, come on, let's stop this guy. Something like that, But it's sad, man. The times now, you're right, I'm crazy. People are very sensitive and very violent. Sometimes you don't react as you need to do because you're scared something happened to you. Okay?
Can you even imagine? Seriously, Laurel and Paul, if I'm going to yell at this guy as he's driving, this would be me. Hey! Stop driving! So fast!
Wait a second.
Give me a second. I got to catch my breath. Hang on. I can't breathe. I need an oxygen tank. Does anybody have any oxygen?
4 words help you a lot on that. Get off my lawn.
Right, I think I can manage.
That's all you have to say.
That's about all I could have managed. Would have been about 4 words, to be sure.
Hey, Joe, it's not the get off the lawn scenario or whatever. How about this? Keep a pocket full of nails in your car. So whenever you're getting out and you're walking through the parking lot and you see some jackrabbit driving like a turtle on speed, then walk back to your car and grab the pocket full of nails and just kind of drop them out in the road as you're walking and give the idiot a flat tire. That would be funny, actually.
Carrying a pocket full of nails never crossed my mind.
With your luck with flat tires, that would backfire immediately.
Right? That's actually, I thought the same thing, Greg.
You throw the nails on the road, but then you end up getting innocent people that are going to get flat tires. You have to go out and pick them all up, and that's when you go, okay, wait a minute. Right. That's when you go through that again.
Right? Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Hey, Joe, you mentioned the passenger in that white Corvette was a Pizza Press employee, and that they were wearing their Pizza Press uniform. Maybe somebody ought to go talk to Pizza Press and ask why their employees are representing themselves that way, even when they're off duty. I'm sure that's against the policy of Pizza Press. The guy probably signed a student or an employee handbook somewhere that would allow him to be terminated for his actions.
I get where you're coming from, but it was the driver that was causing the problems, not the passenger. I almost feel like the passenger was a victim, or certainly would have been a victim had he gone flying out because he was standing up in a convertible Corvette while the guy was doing burnouts. Kudos to Frank in the comments section in the chat room. Frank just writes, nailed it. So that obviously meant the guy with the...
Nailed it.
Yeah, with a pocket full of nails. No doubt about that.
Joe, did you just report Hunter Biden is embarrassed about his tax return information being released? Did he check his computer out lately? Talk about embarrassing. Wasn't that a crack pipe and an escort?
Yeah. So there's plenty of pictures of, regrettably, Hunter Biden naked. Who doesn't take pictures of themselves routinely naked while snorting cocaine with hookers? That's totally normal to want to document that awesomeness. And yeah, Hunter Biden is embarrassed that his tax returns have been released, or parts of his tax returns, I suppose. But not embarrassed by what was on the contents of that laptop. Yeah, I think he's got his priorities misplaced, but I think we also knew that. I think we know that he has his priorities misplaced.
Probably embarrassed by his white Corvette, too.
Yeah. Maybe that was him doing burnouts in the Urban Air parking lot. I don't know. Coming up in a minute here, I don't know if you've heard about this alligator. There's an alligator that is missing its top jaw. It only has a bottom jaw. It doesn't have a nose. There's the whole top jaw is missing, and it looks like it's been missing for a while because it's already healed up. You'll be glad to know that they, I'm assuming either trappers or the Florida Wildlife Commission, they have caught the alligator and they have now handed it over to Gatorland, where it presumably will live out his life. I have thoughts on that. Which I'll share with you coming up in a moment. I'd like to get your thoughts as well about that alligator that's missing its top jaw. So we'll get into that for you coming up in just a few minutes. Hang on. Again, if you ever miss a moment of the Joe Kelley Show, check out the podcast. You'll find that in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and elsewhere. Also, there's exclusive content for you on the Joe Kelley Show Facebook page. So look for the Joe Kelley Show Facebook page, please, and give that a like. We'll continue. Coming up next here on WDBO.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Insightful.
You tell the truth from your point of view.
Entertaining.
Man, that guy is a lot taller than he sounds on the radio.
And engaging.
When we hear you on the radio, it's a good thing.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
Joe, it's real simple. The older I get, the simpler it becomes. The rules that we follow is there's never a wrong time to do what's right and never a right time to do what's wrong. So if your gut told you you should call them out on it or talk to the police or whatever, there's enough people standing by the sidelines, not getting engaged and just ready to take a video of what's happening, and very few of us willing to engage.
Yeah, I wanted to do something. I just didn't know what was best to do.
The next time those kids have to pay for a new set of tires, I hope they remember their fun having the burnouts in the parking lot.
Yeah, I wonder what Corvette tires cost these days. Also, the missing F-35 from the U.S. Marines, they need the public's help in finding this stealth fighter jet.
Man, first Aaron Rodgers, and now this stealth fighter goes missing. Something is going on with jets in America. I smell a conspiracy.
Yes, that's awesome. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but Aaron Rodgers has now said that he thinks that he's going to be back. He's going to be back in time for the playoffs. That he's going to come back from an Achilles tear in time for the playoffs.
Did you see the one video they had where they kind of zoomed in? And you know where the calf of your leg is.
I have a vague idea where my calf is.
Well, I'm just saying, you know where your calf is.
Yes, I have a vague. Go ahead.
when they showed the video, they showed his foot plant, and they showed that Achilles tendon just snap underneath his sock. They showed it. I went, oh my God! It took me like 5 watches or views to see it, and I went, oh no.
I don't want to see video like that. That's terrible. And yet now the NFL Players Association is using this as a means of complaining about artificial turf, saying that fields need to have real grass, not artificial turf, because it was artificial turf on which Aaron Rodgers broke his Achilles. But he said he had cutting-edge new surgery and thinks he'll be back for the playoffs, assuming that the Jets are going to be in the playoffs. It's 5:58. Hang on. We're going to get into the one-jawed alligator coming up next. Stay with us here on the Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Now, WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Triple Team Traffic.
Well, this will be a quick report. We got a crash 417 southbound on the Lake Jessup Bridge. The left lane is shut down, and you've got delays starting around Lake Mary Boulevard. This report sponsored by ViStar Credit Union. ViStar Credit Union's third location, now open in Winter Park. They're ready to help you reach your financial goals and life goals. Visit vistarcu.org/winterpark. Federally insured by NCUA. From the WDBO Triple Team Traffic Center, I'm Paul Cross.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. breaking news to lively debates, covering the issues that matter to you.
I make it a point to listen to Joe Kelley when I need to fully understand what's happening in the news.
Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's News and Talk, WDBO.
I am so glad you're joining us. Thank you. We realize you got options when it comes to your drive home. There's a lot of different things you could listen to. And we thank you so very much for being a part of this show, the Joe Kelley Show, with our whole cast of characters, Laura Lee, Paul Cross, Greg Rhodes, and me. I'm Joe Kelley. Check out the Joe Kelley Show podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Find the Joe Kelley Show on Facebook. Give that a like as well. I don't know if you've seen this picture of the alligator with its top jaw missing. And, you know, this happens from time to time. We'll see one of our wild animals here in Central Florida will have an injury of some sort. Oftentimes, you know, we'll see manatees that have these terrible scars on them from boat and motor propellers. And it just leaves this terrible scarring on tops of manatees. And it's horrible. It's horrible to look at. And it makes your heart hurt to look at something like that. I don't know about you, but I'm a animal guy, right? I mean, I'm a human guy, to be honest. But I love animals. And I've mentioned before, I've got a mutual non-aggression policy with all living things. If you don't harm me, I will not harm you. So if I find spiders in the home, I don't kill them. I will catch them and carry them outside. I mean, I have nothing but compassion for all living things. They're all God's creatures. Our God is a sovereign God, and He is the God of all things. And I just can't bring myself to hurt things. I can't kill things. I just can't do it. But I do recognize that there are times in which euthanizing an animal is perhaps the best thing for it. And when I saw this alligator missing its entire top jaw, I mean, right to its eyeballs, I knew they were going to have to catch it, which they did. And they have now turned it over to Gatorland, and really it's now Gatorland's problem to deal with. But I just get the sense that the best thing for that animal is to euthanize it. And it breaks my heart to say that, but what kind of life can an alligator have missing its top jaw? I mean, we know how alligators eat. But, so the other side of that is, obviously it has been eating, and the jaw is healed. So whatever happened to that alligator, whether it got in a fight with another alligator, whether a human tortured or did something terrible to the alligator, whether it got hit by a boat propeller, whatever happened to that alligator, it happened some time ago because it has healed up, and the alligator is still alive. It's a female gator, and the Gatorland park director, Mike Heilman, said, "We've had this injury before, and the alligators have gone on to live long, happy, healthy lives. I expect nothing else here." And I have no doubt in my mind that now that gator is at Gatorland, I'm sure that they will move heaven and earth to make sure that gator is well cared for and well fed. But, you know, we kill gators pretty regularly here in the state of Florida. There is a hunting season for gators, and there are gator farms where people raise gators for the express purpose of cutting off their heads and selling them as trinkets in gift shops that skin their hide to make boots and belts and cowboy hat bands, that use their flesh to sell to restaurants that are making alligator meals. It is nothing for us to euthanize an alligator. And I just feel like the best thing to do for that gator is to euthanize it. Now, again, that's Gatorland's call to make on this one. But what is your takeaway on that? 844-580-WDBO, 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app.
they need to euthanize that poor alligator. Would you want to live without? I mean, it's an animal. Euthanize the darn thing.
Because I'm sure that someone could probably, and this is where my head's at. I bet someone will try to come up with a 3D printed upper jaw and try to recreate the alligator. But to me, that in and of itself is torture. I mean, that's just putting this poor alligator through more torture. Hasn't that alligator suffered enough?
Oh, I have so many things to question. Look at Winter. Look at the dolphin in Clearwater that just passed away recently, but didn't have a tail. There's no way that thing's living. No way Winter's ever going to be able to survive. But they kept her alive.
Somebody crafted a tail.
And this, for some way, as Jeff Goldblum once said in Jurassic Park, life will go on, or we'll find a way.
Life finds a way.
Yeah, and this alligator has survived. Didn't have to chomp down on anything, but this alligator has grown older without an upper jaw.
How do you suppose he did that? I mean, if a
he could have been born that way, we don't even know.
If a gator can't clamp down on its food, what has it been eating? How has it been feeding? I mean, because they're not. Hang on, I got to get the right word here. They're not omnivores, right? They don't eat grass. They only eat meat, right? So they're purely carnivores, not herbivores and not omnivores. So how in the world, I mean, I have questions. How has that animal survived?
Yeah,
from the looks of it, it seems like it's a pretty young gator. So I think that could be a part of it too. And a little bit more back to Paul's point, like, it turns into an attraction now for Gatorland. I mean, they've gotten nothing but free publicity out of this, similar to how Winter was down at Clearwater. It just turns into an attraction for them. But I think it's interesting that they keep the gator alive the way that they are.
That is interesting, Greg, and I guess I didn't think about that as to whether or not that would become an attraction. Because, Laurel, what did I say to you off the air a few hours ago about that alligator? Do you remember what I said?
Besides, it should be put down?
Yes, besides that. Remember, I said I wish people would stop showing pictures of that alligator because I can't look at it. I don't want to see that alligator that's missing his entire top jaw. It just unnerves me to see that. I just feel so terrible for that alligator. I don't want to see pictures of it. And I understand that people went to I think it was the Clearwater Aquarium where that dolphin was. And I understand that dolphin also became inspirational to people with prosthetics. That there were a lot of children that would go there that had prosthetic legs, prosthetic arms, and they took solace and comfort in seeing a prosthetic tail on a dolphin. But
You're right about that, though, Joe. That is a very, very valid point. It became an inspiration of survival. But to Greg's point as well, it's going to be a tourist attraction, and their side of things is going to be, look, every life is precious. We're going to keep this alligator. If you'd like to see the alligator, come on out to Gatorland.
$17 a ticket.
Maybe.
I mean,
$17 ticket.
Okay, I guess that's my question for you then. Would you pay to go see a deformed or injured alligator?
Yes.
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either.
I went to the Clearwater Aquarium and saw Winter. I would definitely go and see it. It's something different. Like, you can go to any aquarium and see, especially in Florida, you can go almost anywhere and see an alligator.
You can go in your backyard and see an alligator.
Exactly, right? But missing the top half of its jaw, that's something different, something interesting. And as long as it's being taken care of appropriately, that it's not in any additional pain or anything like that, I imagine, I don't see a problem with it. I would go.
That was Greg, 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. I'm in the euthanize it camp, as there are plenty of healthy alligators, and we kill alligators right and left in the state of Florida anyway. And even if they wanted to just preserve its head and say this is the miracle alligator that was missing a top jaw. Karen in the chat room writes, I'm a Gatorland annual pass holder. I will be looking for that gator. I appreciate that, Karen. Thank you very much. Frank writes, it's honestly a great example of nature's perseverance. Yeah, that is a good point as well. Cindy writes, maybe they use the jaws to grab the prey, but swallow it whole, and their digestive system handles it.
That's what I was thinking, because I found a picture of the gator with its mouth open, and it's probably the size of my hand, has enough jaw space to grab a small fish and swallow it whole. So I think it could have caught little fishies.
I am looking at Gatorland here on their site on parts of it, and spokesperson said that the alligator had basically no chance of surviving in the wild, none, with this severe of an injury. But with having virtually no chance of surviving, how did it survive even for as little time as it's been around? They said they're going to monitor the gator and make sure that it is eating in a stress-free environment.
I think for as little as it is, it could have caught enough fish. But I think that if it had grown bigger, it would have never been able to catch enough fish.
Well, maybe
they said it. They believe it survived doing the same thing, that they're going to be doing, which is just kind of getting little tiny bits of food. Snails, slugs, and frogs. They think that's what it ate. They're not fast moving. They can get them out of the soil. And
maybe it's as little as it is because it has eaten so little. Maybe it's an older alligator that just never grew to full size because it's never been able to eat anything. And I knew someone would bring this up, and I'm glad you did. Cindy in our chat group. Again, if you ever want to join the chat group, we love our chat friends. They're just the best. Cindy writes, if we think like that, should we euthanize kids born without limbs or with a cleft lip? And I thought the same thing. I thought, man, if this is a human equivalent, but I put animals and humans in different categories. I know that PETA says that a mouse is a dog, is a horse, is a human, and I do not believe that. I don't subscribe to that thought process. I believe that the animals were put here for human sustenance. God made it abundantly clear that the animals are here for the humans, and the humans reign supreme on planet Earth. And so I do place a much greater value on human life than I do on animal life. I don't have a problem euthanizing an animal that is either deformed or badly injured.
Suffering.
844, right, suffering. 844-580-WDBO. Let's go to Mineola. Cam, you're on the Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. How are you, Cam?
Doing great. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
All right, so I saw this picture of the alligator a couple days ago, and I thought it was crazy. I showed my friend. We were at their house, and when she saw it, she freaked out. She called her kid downstairs and says, "Hey, look at this." The reason she freaked out was because a month or so ago, they were down at Vero Beach, and a top jaw of an alligator washed up on shore.
Wow.
And she is convinced it's the same gator.
Really?
Yeah.
In Vero Beach, does it, Paul Cross, does it say where the alligator was found? I mean, before.
No, I didn't see that in there.
I didn't see that either.
They did say that they possibly lost the jaw, she lost her jaw, either in a fight or by a boat.
Yeah.
Boat propeller or lost the upper jaw and nose to its fight.
Cam, what would you do with the gator at this point?
Man, I wish I could just ask it if it's happy. But,
yeah.
I think you're right. I think that it's probably not. I know that if I was, being fed through a straw or something and I couldn't actually enjoy eating, I don't know how much enjoyability I would have in life. I mean, I have a family, so I enjoy life for other reasons. But if I were an alligator, dude, eating's where it's at.
Right. I mean, that's all they do, right? It's the three F's. Fighting, something. What was that? No,
some other F word.
And then fornicating is the
right.
is the other F.
They said they found it. By the way, it was in a lake in Sanford.
In Sanford.
Yeah.
All right. So it's hard to imagine that would be the jaw that y'all found on the beach in Vero Beach. That's pretty far south But
I wonder about the currents. I wonder what directions the currents go.
Actually,
it's
yes.
Not that far, depending on ocean currents.
The currents do go south. You're absolutely right. On the Atlantic side, the currents go south. Stranger things have happened. Cam, thank you so much. I'm so glad you called. Thank you for listening, being a part of the Joe Kelley Show. The number is 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. The United States Senate gets rid of the Senate dress code for one man, John Fetterman, so that he can wear his cargo shorts and hoodies on the Senate floor. Oh, my goodness gracious. We will get into that for you coming up next, in addition to our alligator discussion. You can join us now, 844-580-WDBO, or use the open mic in the WDBO app.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Now, the three big things you need to know.
3. The Powerball jackpot keeps rolling. It's now at $638 million for tonight's drawing. That comes with a cash value of over $304 million. Meanwhile, tomorrow's Mega Millions jackpot is up to $183 million. 2. The United Autos workers' strike against the big three autos makers is now in its 4th day. Talks between Stellantis and union negotiators reportedly followed weekend sessions with both Ford and GM. Nearly 13,000 automakers remain on strike at 3 key plants in Ohio, Michigan, and Missouri. 1. 5 Americans are enjoying their tastes of freedom after years of captivity in Iran. They were flown to Qatar today after the U.S. agreed to a deal that will give Tehran access to $6 billion of its own oil revenue that the U.S. had frozen through sanctions.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Orange, Seminole, Osceola, and all of Central Florida. Join the conversation now by using the open mic in the WDBO app. Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's News and Talk, WDBO.
Joe, I can't believe for a second that the Marine Corps, Air Force, Army, Navy, anybody would have let a stealth fighter leave the ground without a systems check, a flight check, a check of all the checks, and a redundant check of all the systems, not to mention the locating system. Come on, man.
So do we think something nefarious is going on with the loss of this F-35 fighter jet? Do we think somehow, some way, and all the news articles I've read about this, the pilot survived. He did parachute out. He punched out. I've heard reports that the jet was on autopilot when he punched out. I have not seen confirmation of that. The pilot is said to be in stable condition in the hospital, and the transponder was turned off on the fighter jet, and literally the Marines cannot find the jet. They don't know where it is. So
But don't you bail only when the plane's going to go down and you're convinced that the plane is going to go down? Why in the world would you bail with it on autopilot?
Well, if that was the case, that's why I go back to, do we think it was something nefarious? Do we think that this pilot somehow, some way had gone nutty butters or was playing for the other team or had an aneurysm or something? I mean, it seems certainly suspicious, but I don't believe in conspiracy theories, so I don't want to go to the wacko side of the story. But it just does seem oddly suspicious that an F-35, an $80 million fighter jet, doesn't have its transponder on, that they can't find it. I can find my drone when I crash it. If I can find my drone, they should be able to find an F-35 stealth fighter jet that cost $80 million.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's News and Talk. Talk and discussion on the latest breaking national news.
Crude oil prices continue to fall.
Local news.
You're not going to have Disney have its own government in Central Florida.
And stories that matter to you. Use the open mic in the WDBO app and let your voice be heard on the Joe Kelley Show.
I got to tell you, if you're not in our chat group, you miss so much great stuff. So one of the engineers, Jeff, has been in the studio here and helping me through a couple of issues. And he needed to take a picture. And so he could send it to one of the other engineers for his feedback. And Frank writes, I literally smiled as they were taking that photo. I need a nap. So in the chat group, he smiled when Jeff was taking that picture. And then Karen writes, Joe's hair looks nice today. Karen always knows how to get to my heart. My hair is the direct pathway to my heart. So thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate that. But the engineer has been helping us in here today, Jeff, and he does just a phenomenal job. He drives the train here at the radio station. So that's really cool. All right, let's go to the phones here. 844-580-WDBO. Fairlyn is in Orlando. Hi, Fairlyn. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
Is your name really Fairlyn or is it Marilyn?
No, it's Fairlyn with an F.
With an F?
Yes.
How nice. I love that. I've never heard that name. What a great name.
I love it myself, and you'll probably never hear it again. It's a family made-up name.
I bet you're right. So we were talking about this alligator that is missing its top jaw, and it has been captured from a pond in Samford and is now out at Gatorland. What are your thoughts about this thing?
Well, I'm glad that they actually have taken it to Gatorland because I think it deserves to live, especially if they know that it's not, in any kind of pain or anything like that. But I was talking to the gentleman, before, and when you mentioned something about PETA, so has PETA made a comment about it, or did you say that you just kind of, agreed with PETA?
No. PETA, to my knowledge, at least, PETA has not made a comment about it. But the point I was making was someone in our chat group was saying that, would we do the same thing for a human? Would we put a human down if they were missing a limb? And I said that PETA has this saying, this motto, that a mouse is a chicken, is a horse, is a human. They're saying that we're all the same, and I do not agree with that. I do not believe PETA's line on that. I believe humans are supreme. Humans are at the top of the food chain, and euthanizing a human is abhorrent, whereas euthanizing an animal in certain circumstances makes sense.
Right. I understand that because I used to, many years ago, I supported PETA because I didn't have a lot of knowledge about PETA. And then when I did my investigation on them and I heard what the CEO, how she felt about just animals in general, as far as like our beautiful pets, dogs and cats and things like that they're better off, that we shouldn't have them at all, and that they're better off in the wild. And because she would rather see them all euthanized than to see us to have a pet as a dog or a cat or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what, that kind of threw me off a little bit. So,
yeah, PETA regrettably has gone extreme, and they are now a punchline to a joke. I think the SPCA is a better organization when it comes to the care of animals and particularly pets. But PETA is very radicalized, and I don't get behind PETA.
Yeah, and I guess as I came in and then got in the car and turned the radio, and I just heard something about. So I said, I'm going to call because I didn't get to really know what you said about it. But as far as I live here in Orlando, so we just recently took our grandkids to Gatorland, and it was exciting for them, to see all the some huge alligators and then some little babies and stuff like that. And so if this poor little gator, and like someone said earlier, maybe it's an adult and it just didn't grow big, But I think that if they can tell that it's not suffering anyway, and they can take care of it and make sure that it's fed so that, that maybe it can grow, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that share your view on that, Fairlyn. I'm so glad you called. It's really great talking to you. You have a great night.
Well, you too, and it was great talking to you. I listen to you whenever I'm in the car.
I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you so much. You need a longer drive is what you need.
Yes, I do. I only had a short 10-minute drive.
There you go. All right. Thank you so much, Fairlyn. Have a wonderful evening. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326.
Hey, gentlemen and Laurel, remember the Elephant Man? People will pay to see anything.
Yeah, but those were different times. We used to, pay to see, well, terribly obese people. We used to pay to see conjoined twins. We would call them Siamese twins, if you recall. I mean, there used to be human oddity road shows, circuses, if you will, and times have changed. I don't get the appeal of seeing something like that. Here's an open mic that I think this is a better idea than euthanizing it. So this is why I love turning to our listeners. You guys always have much better ideas.
Just as Joe always suggests, I did my own research and I looked up the alligator story. Apparently, this alligator has been surviving on its own for quite some time. It has healed and found some way to survive. My first question is, why did somebody have to rescue it and remove it from its natural environment? My second question is, why wouldn't we just leave it where it was and let nature take its course? If the need be, it will be euthanized by nature.
Right, and keep in mind, alligators are cannibals. Alligators will eat their own. So if it's really kind of surprising that alligator missing its top jaw hasn't been eaten by other alligators. But people are weird about stuff like that. People are weird about some animals eating other animals. As an example, I have seen countless videos of snakes, big old snakes that get wrapped around an antelope or a deer or something, and then people try to rescue the deer. And I think, well, no, you're interrupting. You are interrupting nature. The snake was going to eat that deer. And just because in most people's minds, the deer is cuter than the snake, that shouldn't deny the snake the ability to eat that deer in peace. Why do I bother? 844-580-WDBO. Patricia is joining us here on the Joe Kelley Show. Hello, Patricia.
Actually, my name's Sarah.
Your name is Sarah?
Yes.
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
I'm good. I just was shutting my rig down for the day and happened to tune into your radio and caught the tail end of it. And I was just thinking okay, so is this gator actually being able to eat or is it suffering?
Well, it is able to eat. And then how would you tell if a gator is suffering or not? And I don't mean that sarcastically. How would one determine that?
I guess whether it can eat or not. If it's able to eat, then I guess leave it alone and nature will take care of itself. But if it can't even eat to take care of itself, and it's in misery, then you might as well just put it down.
So it obviously was eating in the wild. I have no doubt now that it's a Gatorland, it's going to eat very, very well.
Yeah, then that's cool. If you got humans that want to take care of animals, then let them do their thing. But it's kind of the same thing with humans. You've got somebody that's got an illness that cannot be fixed, and instead of them suffering for 3 years in a bed, worrying about bed sores and being stuck on morphine, they should have that option to say, okay, I want to go to sleep and not suffer anymore.
Boy, that's a whole other can of worms, I'm sorry, Sarah. Sorry about that. That is a whole other can of worms when it comes to euthanizing humans. And places like Canada will euthanize humans just for suffering from depression. Something that is curable. They will allow you to take your own life in Canada for suffering depression. That just seems horrible to me.
I guess it would in a sense, but at the same time, it's like every human that's actually born and gets to live their life. They basically have their own human right to choose what to do with their life, unlike unborn, which is another can of worms.
Yes.
But at the same time, I think my biggest thing is I know in Oregon and stuff like that, if you sign a do not resuscitate and you're suffering from an illness that cannot be cured and if you don't have more than 50% worth of life, they'll go ahead and say, do you want to go to sleep or not? It just depends on the state. Some will actually say, yes, you have the right to choose that you want to go to sleep. And some will be like, no, we're going to watch you suffer.
You have brought a whole lot of worms to the show here, Sarah. So Thank you for that. We appreciate you injecting so many other angles here. And thank you.
No worries.
That's all right. Thanks for listening, and thanks for being a part of the Joe Kelley Show. We really do appreciate it here on WDBO.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. In-depth segments on topics that matter to Orange, Seminole, Osceola, and all of Central Florida. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
I love your show every night. You're doing great, bud.
Hey, this could be the best action movie ever. So one pilot bails out, another one drops down from another plane, flies that plane off into, nowhere's land or whatever. It could be a great story.
Yeah, somebody earlier mentioned the movie Broken Arrow with John Travolta and Christian Slater, which was a terrible movie because it starred John Travolta and Christian Slater. It was so bad. But a lot of theories about the F-35 for sure. Let me see if we got another comment here.
All civilian aircraft, and I would like to think that military aircraft has something very similar to a device called an ELT, an emergency locator transmitter that is designed to go off on impact. Sometimes they go off on a hard landing. So unless the transmitter was destroyed or this plane buried itself in some swamp or is under deep water, then I haven't got a clue.
The plot thickens. Thank you so much for being a part of the Joe Kelley Show. Coming up next, it's the third hour of the Sean Hannity Show. Stick around. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 5.